All right, so we're going to be working on lesson 2.5, okay? And we're still solving equations, but if I kind of look down here like A, now all of a sudden we start seeing lots of letters, okay? Same thing on B. I've got a K and a J. So we're going to talk about how to kind of move things around, still using the same rules we do on equations, but how do we move things around to get the whatever it tells you to isolate. So in this case, we want to get the N isolated, we want to get the K isolated, okay? But before we get started, let's look at our vocabulary. Okay, so a literal equation is an equation that involves two or more variables, okay? So these are all example of literal equations. Equations that are just like chaotic, no rhyme or reason. So like 2x plus 3y equals A, okay? So lots of different letters in there, all right? The next one we have is a formula, okay? And it's an equation that states a relationship among quantities. Okay, so what's really important about a formula is it's already been proven, okay? So like area equals base times height, perimeter, 2 lengths plus 2 widths, okay? E equals MC squared. Whatever it is, it's already been proven as a fact. It's always going to be true no matter what. Okay, so that's the difference between a formula and a literal equation. Literal equation is just a hodgepodge of craziness. That's just craziness. Where a formula is actually been proven, there's rhyme and reason to it. Okay, all right, so if we look down here in example 1a, okay, this would be an example of a literal equation. It's just kind of craziness. Okay, first thing we want to do though is we're going to isolate our variable. Okay, and so it tells you to solve for n, so we are going to get the n all by itself. Okay, so now to get the n by itself, you're still going to go through the same steps we've been going through in the first 4 sections of this chapter. You're going to start by just subtracting 6p over to the other side. So that cancels. I get 15 minus 6p equals 3n. And then again, I'm isolating that n. So now I'm going to divide everything by 3. So I'm going to end up with 5 minus 2p equals n. Okay, again, isolate the variable, get it all by itself. Okay, so let's try another one here. So if I'm looking at B and I want to isolate K, so I want to get K, oops, that didn't work out so well. I want to isolate K, so I want to get K all by itself. Okay, so now keep in mind, this is a big fraction, right? This is a big boy. So we're going to take the big boy down by multiplying by 5. Okay. So I'm multiplying by 5 on both sides, so those cancel. So I have k minus 2 equals 55j. 11 times 5 is 55. Okay, so now I want to finish off by getting the k by itself. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Get that to cancel. So I have k equals 55j plus 2. And that's going to be your final answer here. All right, so let's look down here at our next example. Okay, so C. All right, so now in this guy, it says solve for D. So now if I look here, though, I've got a D on this side, and I've got a D on the other side, okay? So you're still going to have to sometimes move them together, get them on the same side first before you start moving things around. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I want to subtract the D over to the other side and get them put together, okay? So I have 5C equals 3d minus 1d, remember there's a 1 in front there, is 2d minus 1. Again, we're still isolating this d right here. So the next thing I would do is I would add 1 over. So add 1 over to this side. So you get 5c plus 1 equals 2d. And then I'm going to divide everything by 2. So when I do that, I'm going to leave my final answer is just 5c plus 1 divided by 2. If you want to call it 5c divided by 2 and then a 1/2 and break it up, kind of like we did in the first chapter, that would be fine. So like where we were circling here, remember that? Where we circled this and circled this, that would be fine. Equals d. And both of those would be an acceptable answer. It doesn't matter. Now, if we look back up here, though, keep in mind that back over here, I divided by 3, but because both of these were divisible by 3, I went ahead and simplified it, okay? On C, these are not divisible by 2, so that's why we're going to leave it. That's why we're going to leave it like this or like this, okay? All right, one more here. Solve for Q. Okay, so now when you're looking at this, most of you guys are going to tell me to distribute the A right away, and that'll be fine. So AQ minus 8A equals 23. Now we still want to isolate that Q. So I've got Q right here. I'm still going to isolate him. So to get him by himself, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 8A over to the other side. Okay, again, if you need to draw the wall, draw the wall. So that cancels. So I have AQ equals 23 plus 8A. All right, so now again, we're still getting the Q by itself. So now I'm going to divide by A to isolate the Q. Divide by A on this side. All right, so my answer is Q equals, and since I can't really divide by variable, I'm just going to leave it like this, 23 plus 8A divided by A. And that's going to be my final answer. All right, and last problem we're going to look at, okay, example 2. The formula for the volume of a rectangular prism is V equals L, which is length times width times height here. L is the length, W is width, and H is the height. Okay, so first thing, solve for W, okay? So when I'm looking at this guy right here, and I want to isolate my W, okay? If I'm thinking about this, this is saying length times width times height. So to undo the multiplication, I'm going to use division. Now in this case, you can actually divide by the L and the H at the same time because they will both cancel out in the same step. So whatever you do to one side, though, you got to do the other. So I have V divided by LH equals my width. Okay? All right, so that's the first answer there. Okay, so now it says, find the width of a rectangular prism if the volume is 79.04 and a length of 5.2 and a height of 4. Okay, all right, so let's go up here, and I'm going to just keep working off this guy. I'm going to change colors, but I'm going to work off this guy up here. So volume, make sure I get all this right, is 79.04. Okay, my length, let's come back down here. What was my length? 5.2, so my length was 5.2, and my height was 4. And that's going to equal your width. So there's a reason they're having you solve for that letter. So when they ask you to solve for that letter, solve for it, because then usually you're just going to be plugging in these numbers right off the bat, okay? All right, so now let's go ahead and figure out. We've got to take 5.2 times 4. So we're going to get 79.04 divided by 20.8, okay? So then I'm going to go ahead and take 79.04 divided by 20.8. And it's going to be kind of a crazy answer here. I'm going to get, looks like 8.61. I used my calculator, I'm not going to lie. Used my calculator to divide that out, okay? Now, we do need to label those. So what are we talking about? We're talking about centimeters here. So I'm going to have 8.61 centimeters. And that's going to be your final answer, okay? All right, that concludes the notes for lesson, what lesson are we on? Lesson 2.5.